Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Dorky Dunkleosteus. I am so happy to have you here. I am Carla, your curator, and today we will be talking about the new species of Allosaurus discovered in Utah. So, the new Allosaurus that was discovered in Utah is actually pretty old. It actually was originally discovered in the 1990s. But let's go and talk first about something called cladistics. So, cladistics is the way that modern scientists actually organize and classify new species and genuses. This cladogram is actually of specifically dinosaurs, and you can see they're grouped into two major types. So there's Saurischia, which translates to lizard hip, and Ornithischia, which translates to bird hipped. It's really funny because if you look over to where the birds are, they're in Saurischia. It's actually considered to be a bit of a misnomer that perhaps the original person to come up with the two hip types switched them when he dropped his papers. So we are actually going to be focusing more on the Allosauridae portion of the cladogram. So Allosauridae is a group of dinosaurs that includes Allosaurus, Carcharodontosaurus, Acrocanthosaurus, these other larger types of theropod dinosaurs that are not related to raptors. These guys are often considered carnosaurs. They are described as having very large heads, short, bulky necks, and generally have large, heavy bodies. Interestingly enough, T-Rex was once placed in here before it was discovered. It was more related to the maniraptors in Deinonychosauria. So, Allosaurus, the type specimen is actually Allosaurus fragilis. It was the first of its genus and its species discovered by ornithologist Charles Marsh in 1877. So that shows how old we've known about Allosaurus. It lived in the Jurassic period about 155 to 145 million years ago. This was before T-Rex and many of the more popular types of dinosaurs like the ceratopsians and the whatnot. The previous cladogram actually shows the types of dinosaurs by era as well as how they branched out. That's pretty cool. So it's one of the first well-known theropods and one of the most commonly discovered. So there are over 60 individual dinosaurs that we have discovered in at least the US. I don't know about the rest of the world that fit into the Allosaur family. So it is, as I said, a type of carnosaurian dinosaur classified as an allosaurid, and there are 3 to 5 recognized species, depending on who you ask. Most paleontologists believe that there are now 3, with the newest one being Allosaurus jimmadseni, which is the new recognized species. So, this is a cladogram of the carnosaurs, and as you can see, Allosaurus sits all the way up here. This was developed by Benson et al. Give credit where credit is due in 2010 for their work. Allosaurus is up here, and then you have the other types of carnosaurs, like I said, Acrocanthosaurus, Carcharodontosaurus, Gigantosaurus, Megaraptor, all of these really interesting large theropod dinosaurs. They all share a general family resemblance, and as you can see, other than these two, the Fukuiraptor and Megaraptor, none of them actually are raptors. In fact, Fukuiraptor and Megaraptor are not raptors at all. They are not related to the raptors, which are Coelurosaurs. So, Allosaurus jimmadseni. Original specimen was found in the 1990s in Utah, as I said earlier. So, the body was found separate from the skull. In fact, it was pretty well separated, about 6 to 7 feet. And originally, they didn't find the skull with the body. What's also really cool is this specimen was nearly complete. Other than the skull and a couple of other tiny bones, it was fully articulated, give or take, and actually had a complete individual dinosaur. That's really cool because that often doesn't happen a lot. So if you fast forward 6 years, they spent 4 years trying to search for the skull, didn't have any luck. So if you fast forward 6 years to 1996, it was actually discovered by a radiologist who used radioactive detection meters to find the radioactive skull, and it wasn't that far from the body at all. It was about 6 to 7 feet. So what's really cool is because of how dinosaur bones are fossilized, they actually can absorb radioactive material. There's some suggestion that possibly using very sensitive radiometers like Geiger counters and the like, we could actually discover more dinosaur bones. So another specimen was discovered, in which would be Big Al, and he would be put into the Montana Museum. I've seen some pictures of him. He's pretty big. He's actually one of the largest specimens of Allosaurus ever discovered. What makes jimmadseni a species? These are the major things. As I was reading through the paper, there's a lot of very little things that make it an individual species. Some paleontologists and some people who actually do this type of thing for their life and for their career have some problems with how species are described. How are they actually a species in one way or another? So I picked out 3 of the major things that I got from the paper that makes jimmadseni an individual species. So the first is what's called the jugal bone. So if you imagine my face being a Allosaurus skull, it would actually be this part. So part of what would make our zygomatic arch, so our cheekbone. So it's basically part of the lower part of the orbit that is very different on jimmadseni compared to the other 2 known species, Fragilis, and there's another species and I can't remember it at the moment. The way that this bone is shaped is very distinct, and they believe that qualifies it as one of the major things that makes it a new species. The other thing are the horns. So you'd have to imagine my face was a little longer, but Allosaurus and some other similar dinosaurs from the Carnosaurs actually have bony protrusions on their skulls. This includes Ceratosaurus, some other ones. Majungasaurus also has an individual bony horn. This is different from the large horns that we see in ceratopsians. So on Allosaurs, they have this small ridge that comes up actually just before their eyes. So where my index fingers are would be where the bony ridges would be. On jimmadseni, these horns actually have a very long blade-like protrusion that continues all the way down almost to its nostrils. So this is very different from the well-known Fragilis species because they don't have those ridges on its skull. They're actually pretty smooth. Overall, the skull is less robust, so it's not as bony, it doesn't look as big or as imposing, and in fact, some of its openings are much larger than that of Fragilis. And we can actually take a look at the next picture. So this on the right-hand side is the Allosaurus jimmadseni species skull, and here we have the actual individual bones colored out and outlined. So as I said, the jugal bone is this dark green area right here. As we can see in the comparison of these 3 species, Fragilis, jimmadensis, and I think this is a European species. I forgot to look that up. I apologize. The jugal bone on Fragilis has a very deep U cup, and jimmadseni does not. It's very shallow. And of course, it has a very straight edge compared to the much more distinct looking Fragilis. And then, of course, we can see the horns, again, are very different between the 2. You can even see on the actual bone here, on the actual skull, there's a bit of a ridge that comes down almost to the nasal opening here. So in comparison just with Fragilis, we can tell that this skull is much, much lighter built. It does not seem to have as much bone, especially on the upper mandible. The nasal opening is much larger, and all that kind of stuff. So what does this add up to? Was it a hunter or a scavenger? Allosaurus is one of those dinosaurs that a lot of people have been playfully arguing about over, was it an active hunter, say like Tyrannosaurus rex, or was it a scavenger? Ideally, though, all predatory animals are going to be opportunistic, and they're not going to turn their nose up to a fresh dead dinner. So what makes a good hunter? The first thing is binocular vision. When we look at a skull, say, of either Allosaurus or Tyrannosaurus rex, we can see really well, kind of well, how their eyes would be. But it's even better when you have reconstructions. So we have the Allosaurus on the left and the T-Rex on the right. These are 2 species, these are two completely different species and completely different genuses. The models are actually very shrink-wrapped, which this is from the late 80s, early 90s, these models and the paper that I got these from. So you can see how on the Allosaurus, you can't really see its eyes in full. You can see where its eyes kind of are, kind of like if you're looking at a horse or even a goat or even any kind of other prey animal. Their eyes are set to the side. When you come right over here to look at T-Rex, you see its eyes straight on, just like you would with a human being, a primate, or even a hunter such as a wolf, a dog, a cat, a lion, any kind of major animal. So this is a great example of binocular vision. So if we were to take our hands and put them over to your side of your face, and just until you can, as you're staring at a single point, just be able to see the movement, that is about, at least on me, that's about 180 degrees. Each individual person has their own individual range of their binocular vision. Now, to test to see how well one eye overlaps with the other, we're going to close one eye, and we're going to go from our midline, which is about our nose, and we're going to go, and again, I'm looking right at the camera. I'm not moving my eye, and I can just about see it right here. So that's almost to, if I were to draw a straight line, that's pretty much to the corner of my eye right there. Now, that means my binocular vision is about a 90 degrees right in front of my nose. That's really, really good. That means that I can see depth very well. Now, if we look at T-Rex, that definitely has a really big overlap. If we look at Allosaurus, that's not as big of an overlap. So it does have very poor depth perception. Sorry, Allie, looks like you need glasses. What's next? Well, you need a strong bite and you need a strong neck to be able to handle large, struggling prey. If we look at modern animals like lions, or even individual like that live in a pack, so you have lions, wolves, and that like, or if we look at individual hunters, so like tigers or mountain lions or any kind of animal like that that has a really good, that they're really, really good at biting down on live, struggling, generally healthy prey. Their jaws are going to be very, very strong. They're going to have a large bite force. They're also going to have really strong necks. They're going to have really strong muscle attachments to their cervical vertebrae. Let's look statistically at Allosaurus versus T-Rex again. So Allosaurus, when they did CT scans and did 3D scans of their skulls, and they calculated out and they added where the muscles would be, because we can actually figure out where muscles attach because they leave bone scars on the actual bone of where muscles attached. And they calculated all that out and they put it into a computer. They actually calculated it out to be equal to or more on line with a modern wolf or leopard bite force. That's still nothing to sneeze at. A wolf or leopard can easily break our bones in our arms, could easily bite off our fingers. They have around 1,100 to 1,200 pounds per square inch. Now that means for every 1 square inch, that's how much pressure is being put on that square inch. Now, obviously, we have to calculate that out as the tips of their teeth because that shows how much force is being on there. So even though about a square inch is that's a lot of price. When you have it as a single point, that's how much pressure. That's pretty hard. The average human has about a 600 to 700 pounds per square inch if we really bite into something. If we bite any more, we can actually crack our teeth and break our own jaws. So that's what they're doing there. They're putting the pressure on our virtual skulls to the absolute max to see where that stress becomes dangerous to the animal. Now we look at T-Rex. T-Rex, with its massive skull, had a bite force of 12,800 pounds per square inch. Now, to give you an idea, I actually have a cast of a T-Rex tooth here. This is a T-Rex tooth. Right here, that would be the tip. So you imagine 12,800 pounds per square inch jamming into the tip. That's a lot of pressure. That is more than bone crushing. That is absolute destruction if it would happen to a human. I kind of feel like that guy in Jurassic Park who was on the toilet. Yeah, he got eaten really, really quickly. So to compare that to a modern animal, saltwater crocodiles have a bite force only of about 3,700 pounds per square inch. That easily can rip off our arms. That's 4 times as much. Wait, Is that math right? 3, 6, 9. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, that's 4 times as much pressure as a saltwater crocodile. And crocodiles easily can view us as a food source. So the T-Rex, we're pretty much a snack. Let's look then at the individual teeth. Now, I'm lucky enough to have a T-Rex tooth, but I do not have an Allosaur tooth. But I've got some illustrations here. This is the T-Rex tooth, and the T-Rex is on the right-hand side. The Allosaur is on the left-hand side. It's really hard to tell in a visual example, but we can compare it to the T-Rex tooth that I have. This is a chonky boy. This is probably one of the smaller ends. This is a good 1.5 inch base. And even though this does not have an actual root coming down, the root on a T-Rex is actually equal to or longer. In fact, sometimes it's 1.5 times as long as the actual tooth that's above the gum line on these animals. That's a really deep root. That means that these animals had strongly rooted teeth, which means they weren't going to break. And of course, just the general size and how bulky they are, they're not easily going to break, even if struggling against a live animal. I have seen Allosaurus teeth in person. They're generally about that long, including the root. They're about equal in half and half. That wouldn't be so bad, except for the fact that they're very, very narrow. Allosaurus teeth are the classic steak knives. T-Rex, I've heard so many people say that T-Rex had a mouthful of steak knives. No, they have a knife full of pickaxes. Really robust pickaxes that really are terrifying. Not to say that Allosaurus didn't have terrifying teeth. They were serrated. That means that they could easily cut into flesh, just like a steak knife. But what would you rather go hunting with? A steak knife or a pickaxe? I'd go for the pickaxe. Sorry, Al, your teeth just don't cut it. What's the final conclusions? Allosaurus probably was not an active predator, at least not an active pursuit predator like, say, T-Rex, or even modern animals like wolves, tigers, lions. These guys were probably more like a lamb shark ambush predator. They would have waited or sought after animals that were sick, probably close to dying, or maybe even just not that healthy anyway. So they would have had, again, with that poor depth perception, they would have had to wait to be very, very close. They would have had to make sure that their bite did enough damage. So actually, now that I'm thinking about it, they were probably more like a Komodo dragon. Komodo dragons don't have great depth perception, but their teeth are pretty sharp, and they're really patient. These guys, Komodo dragons, they actually bite. So not only are they poisonous, but they're venomous. So they have really bad teeth, Komodo dragons. Makes sense that probably with those serrations on Allosaurus, they would have had really bad teeth. Possibly poisonous bites, just like a Komodo dragon. One good bite, get the bacteria that ferment in their mouth into the bloodstream of any kind of animal, then all they'd have to do is just follow it until it died. So that kind of makes it pretty cool. So it probably could have gone after something big. All it would have to get is one good bite and then just be patient. So Allosaurus is a really cool animal. Definitely one of my favorites. And it's really cool that we have a new recognized species. And that means we're learning even more. So I'm really excited about this. Hopefully we find some more and we can actually reorganize some of the Allosaurid family. Here are the references that I used. We have the first article, which was the peer-reviewed journal that is linked. Of course, all of these are linked in the description, so you can actually take a look at them. Yes, there is a Wikipedia article. Wikipedia, for all the crap that it gets from high school teachers, is a great place as a jumping board to get more primary article references. I recommend it, especially if you're going wiki diving and you want to find something out. Go to Wikipedia, search it, go down to their references. Find them. A lot of times you can find the actual articles available either at peer-reviewed journals or even just the abstracts. Abstracts sometimes have a lot of the information that you really are looking for. And then we have, of course, the binocular vision PDF article that I used as an example. That was pretty cool. Again, it's an older article, but it's still pretty relevant. Nature, that's where I got my wolf, lion, and leopard and saltwater crocodile information from. And of course, the Smithsonian Mag had a great article on the bite force of Tyrannosaurus rex. Again, I am so happy that you guys joined me for our fun little discussion, our first real discussion episode. If you guys have any questions or comments, hey, leave them down there in the comments section. That's what it's there for. If you have any suggestions for next week's discussion, hey, put it in there. I'm great. Love to see what you would like to see. We may jump back and forth from dinosaurs to something else, or maybe come back to dinosaurs, maybe go to mammals. I don't know. It depends on what we can find, what's going on in the paleontological world. So leave a like. That makes me feel good. Leave a comment. That makes me feel even better. Subscribe, ring ding ding that bell, and be notified when we go upload new videos. Should be every Monday at 9 o'clock. That's what I'm aiming for, 9 o'clock a.m. And then also that ring-a-ling ding ding actually gets you notified when we go live. With fingers crossed, hopefully we'll have live gaming streams up within a couple of weeks. Just have to get a couple more things to get that all set. So thank you again so much for coming here. I am your curator for the Dorky Dunkleosteus. Everybody stay digging. Have a great day. Bye-bye.